spatial plans for urban regions has become an increasing focus of my ministry. But we've had many failures in spatial plans, and we have been concerned about some of the past plans and believe it is necessary to introduce a new approach of how we produce, implement, and enforce these plans. The National Urban Spatial Planning and Development, the NUSPD guidelines, have been drafted afresh as an attempt to meet changing requirements of already urban and newly urbanizing India. Producing robust spatial development plans that guide the development initiatives of cities will be a key consideration of JNNURM2. And we are in the process of framing the second phase of our JNNURM2. We believe that the NUSPD guidelines will be a valuable aid for the state planning authorities.
So the challenges in planning, in good planning, are threefold. The first is plan preparation itself, how we prepare our plans. And part of the challenge is we don't even have a vision of the future. So invariably our plans are merely regulatory documents today. There is really no plan for a sustainable future, be it the environment, be it economic future, or be it one of saying equity. The second one is implementation, and this is where land again becomes very important. How do we get the land? I mean, in Jaipur, when I was doing the master plan, the largest problem was, we'll draw up these plans, but how do you make sure the roads that we plan are all on private property? Acquisition is rife with, problems, right? And land pooling of Gujarat and Maharashtra, while it is a phenomenal, socially acceptable tool, takes enormous amounts of time, requires huge amounts of political will and trust between the people and the politician, and requires that those who actually give up their land pay a fair amount upfront for the development of that land. Certainly not something that we can bank upon in a rapidly urbanizing country like ours. The third one, planning enforcement. I don't know how many of you, believe that we actually, however our plans are, most of them are in violation. So you find that invariably, whether it is a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or a Chennai or a Delhi, there is violations galore. So how do we actually enforce the plan? And I think here is where we as planners have to rethink how we create these development control regulations. Folks, I really believe that we need to start with the plan. And the ministry has done, a great job. We have the planning guidelines. The minister is going to send it out to the Urban Development Department of each of your states. I've brought them with me thinking that we would distribute them here, but I think that the ministry is particular that we send out the draft guidelines so that you all then, I urge you all to go through those guidelines, give us your input so that we can finalize it in the next month and send it out as a formal document from the ministry. But we believe we've done a fairly thorough job of looking at all the issues, looking at the institutional structures, the politics of land. We've created a new act, so all of this is in place. What does it have? A very quick brief thing. First of all, it has a report. It has 3 levels of plans. It looks at the metropolitan, the regional plan. It looks at the plan for, here's what it is. So it's got the regional plan, it's got the municipal level plan, and then it's got the ward level plan. It lays out the objectives, it lays out the timelines, the institutional structures. It also talks about a framework. You can't, just like you can't have a laissez-faire approach to master planning. We can't allow the city to just grow. You need to find that fine mix between being a flexible plan as well as creating some amount of rigor. Because otherwise you'll get a city which is just growing without any kind of science. So just like in a building, you need some framework, right? And within that, the architect has its creativity. Similarly, the planner has his creativity based upon the needs of a particular city. But the fundamental principles are threefold. What environment and heritage will we protect and preserve for posterity? Because this you can't get back. Second, what is the economic incentives? How will we allow the energy of economic development to sustain? And third, how will we ensure that there's equity in how we plan? The second part is a code book. The code book essentially, in this we recommend that we move away from only being a use-based approach and actually move into some amount of form-based approach as well. And so we've created spatial norms and guidelines, benchmarked them, from various global standards, and then looked at it in the Indian context and provided you with some, and also indicated the policy linkages which are important impacts on the planning process. So this is a transit-based approach which was, created in the United States and is being followed in Australia. And I think this has great value for us as well in India. Whereas you move away from all these spikes, how many of us in how many cities you see in the suburbs, these crazy little tall towers then surrounded by slums and small houses around. There's no form at all. And how do you actually unlock land value unless you actually have a systematic way of identifying cores where mixed use will happen, where zoning is actually concentrated, and where economic activity is centered, as well as having residential forms, so apartments to small dwellings. So this form-based coding is, I urge you to look at it and see if this actually applies. I think it is the way forward in how we actually rescue how our cities are getting formed. And finally, there's a data book. Every time, and this is from my perspective as somebody who's coming from outside of the government system, the largest problem that I have is getting data. Spatial development plans, well, they are the foundation, as I already said. They provide both the collective vision, long-term collective vision, and there are only 4 parts to it as far as the planners are concerned. What are you going to protect and preserve? What are you going to actually make sure preserve for future growth? Very much like the Singapore model, to say that we're going to grow 250 million more people, and entire United States is going to come into urban India. That's the scale of what's going to happen, and we just don't understand the magnitude of what's facing us. So if that is going to take place, where are they going to come? So we need to start taking land from the beginning and saying this is where we're going to grow. So you buy land today or you acquire land today, you compensate them, but you plan for the future. There's no getting away from it. This is the structure. We need to actually be in consonance with the constitutional requirements, the 74th Amendment of the Constitution. Make sure that we devolve the planning to the planning authorities which have been constitutionally mandated. Figure out a way by which participation can happen, and in my view, the participation happens at the local level where people care the most. This is where, again, there is a huge gap. So something that we need to do. Obviously, this is not in the realm of the planners, it's in the realm of the policy makers at the state level and at the center, but this is something that requires focus and attention.